When it comes to achieving your goals, intelligence or potential are not your issue. Everybody has the potential and enough intelligence to achieve whatever they want. Even if you just want to double your income, even if you just want to have a peaceful, regular routine where you're happy with having more than enough to live your life comfortably, these are not super crazy goals out there for you to manifest. Potential wise, intelligence wise, all of you have it. What determines the difference between people who achieve what they want and create the kind of life that they want, the comfort, the ease, the money, and continuously grow to achieve greater goals, and people who are on the sidelines watching people just like them, but maybe they're better than them, achieve these goals. One difference is self-belief. Self-belief. Fear and trauma are necessary ingredients for oppression. Well, trauma causes fear, and fear becomes a habit. And the reactivity, living in the state of fear, the sole focus is survival. So if you're making decisions based on your survival instincts or out of fear of something going wrong, you are going to play very small. You're not going to take the necessary risks to expand. Sometimes people who are fear driven get very frustrated with themselves, and out of anger towards themselves and the world, they'll take a lot of big risks without considering. This type of carelessness is also commonly associated with trauma coping mechanisms. However, you have been living with these patterns, it is possible to change. However, if you've been living a long time using the same coping survival mechanisms over and over again to deal with stress and conflict, then it's going to take you that much more effort compared to somebody, let's say, who maybe had a tough upbringing, but then meet somebody who is very helpful, nurturing, and is able to guide them to have a new form of mindset paradigm to become an achiever. So let's say if somebody starts reprogramming their mind at 10 years old, that person, first of all, created less consequences that are heavy in their life because they haven't yet made adult decisions. So there's less to fix, but also this person had less repetition with the same habits, and this person's identity, their personality, which the majority aspect of your personality are forms of coping mechanisms that you have carried over to survive your initial environment. Somebody who's 10 years old is going to have less resistance. The person tends to be more receptive and tends to have an easier time adapting to change. Tends to, not always, because again, it depends on how rigid the person has become. There will be some 10-year-olds who are more rigid than, let's say, some 30-year-olds. It does happen. But if you lived 30, 40, 50 years coping and protecting those coping mechanisms, claiming that this is your personality, this is how you're made, this is how things are, the world is like this, and you keep feeding into the fear, nobody likes me, I'm always meant to struggle. If you have these kinds of coping mechanisms, then it becomes a lot harder for intervention to get into the cracks to start making the shifts and changes. So what I typically find with clients is that they know they need to change. Obviously, if they become clients, they know they need to change, and then they'll sign up, and then they'll come across something that really challenges their protective coping mechanism or some kind of paradigm belief. So for example, if the client has a lifetime of unmet needs and they understand intellectually that love bombing is a weakness for them. Okay, you can understand something intellectually. And then they have a scenario where they're dealing with maybe a business associate or a partner or a potential partner where they are being love bombed. Pointing that out to this person, it really becomes a dialogue of which one feels easier for them, or which one feels more validating, which one feels more realistic, and people will always choose the familiar. That's why for you, it's not the lack of information the lack of understanding something intellectually. The problem is that, one, you may not understand how susceptible you are to fall into your old coping mechanisms. And then you tell yourself this is your reality, this is your identity. And then you make consistent, congruent choices based on who you believe you are and how you see the world. So when something challenges that, even when it's good for you, it doesn't mean you'll choose it. Okay. The easiest way to understand this is to talk to somebody who has some kind of sugar addiction. Okay, so you can have a choice of cake or you can have a kale salad. Both are free. There's no other consequence. Which choice will you make? Most people will still choose the sugar, even if they're suffering from health issues, even when they're suffering from gut health issues or they're close to getting diabetes, they're being warned by the doctor. People will still want to choose the sugar because that's familiar for them, it feels right for them, and then they'll have all sorts of excuse behind why this is a better choice for them. Maybe once or twice they'll make good choices and they'll choose the kale salad. But then after a week, 2 weeks, a month, they start to have all these inner dialogues that come up that start to say, well, this is not really helping me. I am not really seeing results. I'm not meant to suffer like this. A little bit of sugar is fine. There's a lot of dialogue that happens, and then people will self-sabotage. So it's not about whether you're intelligent or you have potential. It's really about how much you get gaslit and brainwashed initially by the environment, the people who were surrounding you. So notably your parents, your family, your extended family, whoever was there to condition and program your mind and also traumatize you, instill fear in you, prevent you from seeing your value. Because let's face it, all relationships are based on power. Even if people that took care of you and raised you were supposed to nurture and take care of you, there was always a power dynamic. It is a conflict of interest when it comes to the relationship you share with this person. Living in capitalism, patriarchy, and racism, living in this condition, in this oppressive condition where your caregivers, your family, they were all oppressed and they're trying to gain some kind of leverage, power, privilege. And the easiest person that they can harvest energy from or harvest powergasm from tend to be somebody younger, someone who has less power, somebody who's less aware, you. This is how the majority of people, regardless of social class and financial situation, because power is all relative to your existing condition, people experience trauma because the oppression is built into our family systems, it's built into our communities, spiritual communities, you name it. It doesn't matter how much a community will claim to be conscious, there will always be that power struggle dynamic, hierarchy, and harvesting power from each other or attempting to through one-upping or oppressing, not allowing you to see your value, punishment. All of you have experiences, it makes sense. This is why I say all organizations or family units work like cults, because in capitalism, patriarchy, and racism, there is this ruthlessness, lack of empathy, and sociopathy actually works the best when it comes to climbing the ladder. That's why every single one of these organizations, whether we're looking at personal life or professional communities or spiritual ones too, they're all based on business principles. Understanding these structures and understanding the power dynamics within the structure requires you to understand entrepreneurship and business principles, because capitalism is the main power hierarchy that rules humanity collectively, globally, across all cultures. And therefore, power hierarchies are 100% based on business principles. The person with the most capitalistic leverage, whether that is status, money, the person who controls and brings in the resources, have all the power. And then it's just a tiered system below that. Working on your mindset is overcoming the scam that's been ingrained into you since you were born. Through your family, relationship dynamics, peers, social circles, school system, and corporate culture too. You have to be ready to challenge all of this. And then you will see that you have been hiding from your potential. Mental programming is done through propaganda, the use of words, the use of visual images that come from the word. Until you are able to notice how your brain becomes programmed, how you became programmed, how your identity became set based on the experiences you had. When you can see all of that clearly, you can change the story. You can change how you see yourself, how you see yourself in relation to other people. You can see clearly where the programming went wrong, where you were told words and then you internalized that and it became the truth and the reality and the lens which you see the world through. When you can see and detect all this, then you can start creating the right words. I call them the spells, the word spells, the enchantments, because words are spells. That's how propaganda works. That's how scams work. That's how love bombing works. That's how your belief in yourself also works. All of it really comes down to words, because the human mind is shaped through words. Words create visualizations. Words create pictures. And when you're immersed in the picture in your mind, that becomes your reality. That becomes what you opt into because it feels real, because it's so vivid that it has to be the reality. When you realize that you were given this picture, this film is like being immersed in a 3D experience through the words and experiences somebody curated for you, then you realize the illusion that you've been living in and everything that you believe about yourself, whether you're a loser or a winner, you're a success or you're meant to serve others, whether you are meant to struggle all your life or meant to have a comfortable life, whether you're meant to be oppressed all your life or you're meant to gain privilege in this life, whether you are meant to mindlessly follow and get yourself into horrible scenarios where you're sacrificed, or you're the leader and you can see through other people, their character, their motivations through the lens of capitalism, patriarchy, and racism, and understand human nature so you can prevent problems from happening. You can also leverage human nature to get what you want. All of this is possible when you understand how your mind gets programmed through these spells. And also when you say something, your capacity to program other people. When you become an effective influencer in your own life, in your tiny little bubble right now, you become capable of being that influencer at the global scale. All of it's how you implement words. To be careful with how this will impact people, what you say. You don't want to navigate this world carelessly by oversharing, trauma dumping, or even trying to be relatable and sharing stories about yourself that ultimately come back to self-sabotage, because when people heard those words, they realize that you're an easy prey, oppressed, good girl that they can take advantage of, and you're just that low-hanging fruit. The most impactful programming process and influencing happens through the words that you use to yourself at a regular basis, the words that you don't even maybe verbalize. Words that you do verbalize also have a strong impact. These are your belief system repeating itself and strengthening the conditioning, the belief system, and strengthening your worldview even more so by repetition. But also the words that you say to other people in the most casual, small talk context have the most powerful impact in terms of how other people view you. What one sentence, one revealing aspect of yourself, one gesture and repetition of that has the impact that you don't realize you're having in the environments that you're navigating. If you want to succeed and you've tried manifesting, you've tried tuning into, I don't know, dark feminine, you resonate with my content, going from the good girl to the bad bitch. Maybe you tried elegance training, but you're still not getting results. That's because you haven't changed anything about how you view yourself. Identity and putting on nice clothes, that's nice, but nice clothes require upkeep, and if you don't have an elegant identity, then you are not going to be elegant when it comes to maintaining with consistency. When it comes to your conduct and how other people view you, that matters more than wearing a Chanel sweater. You could be wearing a Zara dupe of that sweater and come across more socially elegant, say the right words, and that will get you more opportunities than wearing a Chanel sweater that you have purchased so you can fit into these circles. Visually, attractiveness gets you through the door, maybe, or the potential for someone to hand you over the key. But what you really have to do is convert people through your presence. Your presence is your behavior, of course, even the smallest microexpression, the smallest gestures, how you lift up a book and you put it down, how you hold a glass, all of that matters. But what if you say the cringiest thing and you don't realize it? What if you are saying something that insults the person who holds a key because you wanted to impress them? What if you, looking so presentable, beautiful, and elegant, you show up and you tell a story where you have told everybody that you are a fearful, oppressed prey with low confidence? The whole illusion shatters immediately, no matter how well you have curated the visual perception. What you say are the most powerful spells that you will cast that has the potential to either manifest the incredible realities that you have been wanting to manifest. Every time you say the words, getting you even closer to the outcome that you want, or completely self-sabotage you. And even in some extreme, extraordinary cases, I have seen people, it's not only about the one thing that you say, you get a negative response back, or something starts happening you can't understand. It's never about the initial event where you start self-sabotaging. It's about how you start to react out of fear, out of trauma coping mechanisms, that turns that one single event that was maybe a little bit bad, maybe a little bit embarrassing, maybe a little bit self-sabotaging, to a whole episode or a chapter of self-destruction. If you'd like to work on your word magic with me, learn how to cast spells effectively, to own your power to prominence and to eminence, you can now book a call through the link in description to join our program Eminence, where I teach you how to use the power of words to shift your self-identity so you are the one to achieve the goals that you dream of, and also become capable of being socially elegant, highly celebrated, admired, loved, and respected professional so you can dominate and conquer your world. Thanks for watching. It's Julia Cha. See you on our calls, see you in our coaching, and see you in my next video.